Everyone. Let me start by asking you this. How many times have you said yes when every fiber of your being was screaming no? How often have you bent over backward to keep the peace, only to feel resentment rising within you like a slow burning flame? Here's the truth we don't talk about enough. Being kind does not mean being soft. Being compassionate does not mean you have to carry the weight of everyone else's expectations. Let's unpack this. When we avoid hard conversations, when we let others overstep our boundaries without a word, we're not being kind, we're being avoidant. We fear confrontation, rejection, or being labeled difficult, but avoidance doesn't protect relationships, it erodes them. And true connection, real, authentic connection comes from clarity and honesty, not from accommodating at the expense of your own needs. Somewhere along the way, many of us picked up the belief that setting boundaries is selfish. But I'm here to tell you that boundaries are the most generous thing you can offer. They're not walls to keep people out. They're bridges to keep relationships safe. The boundaries say, I care about this relationship enough to make it clear what I can and cannot do. They're not acts of cruelty. They're acts of respect for yourself and for the people you care about. Here's the hard part. Setting boundaries requires courage. It means stepping into discomfort and saying, this doesn't work for me, or I need to prioritize my own well-being right now. But courage isn't about fearlessness, it's about taking action despite the fear. And every time you choose courage over comfort, you're reinforcing your worth. You're showing yourself and others that you believe you're deserving of respect. Because when we think of kindness, we often picture softness, always saying yes, always being agreeable, always smoothing things over. But real kindness is rooted in strength. It's the strength to say, I care about you and I care about myself too. It's the strength to show up authentically even when it's hard. So today, I want to give you permission to say no without guilt. Permission to speak up when something feels off. Permission to protect your peace. Because when you stop being soft in a way that diminishes your worth, you start showing up in a way that honors who you are. Being kind does not mean being soft. True kindness is rooted in strength, not self-sacrifice. This statement challenges a common misconception that equates kindness with weakness, passivity, or self-neglect. To truly understand what it means to be kind, we must first dismantle the belief that kindness requires us to erase our own needs or diminish our sense of self. Instead, kindness in its most authentic form is a balance of care for others and care for ourselves, built upon a foundation of courage, clarity, and self-respect. How many of us have been taught, whether explicitly or subtly, that to be a good person means to always prioritize others? We absorb messages that equate kindness with being agreeable, accommodating, and selfless to a fault. Over time, we internalize these expectations, believing that our worth is tied to how much we give or how often we say yes. But what happens when this form of kindness starts to take a toll on us? What happens when the endless stream of giving leaves us feeling depleted, resentful, or invisible? The truth is, kindness that comes at the expense of our well-being is not kindness at all. It is compliance, driven by fear of conflict, rejection, or judgment. True kindness is not about avoiding hard emotions or difficult conversations. It is about showing up authentically, even when it's uncomfortable. It requires strength to hold space for someone else's feelings while still honoring our own. It demands the courage to say no when a yes would compromise our values or boundaries. Kindness is not about pleasing everyone. It is about being honest, intentional, and respectful in our interactions. This is where the strength of kindness lies, in the ability to balance empathy for others with self-respect and in the willingness to engage with the world from a place of authenticity rather than obligation. Kindness rooted in strength often requires us to redefine how we see ourselves in our relationships. For many, the idea of saying no feels harsh, even unkind. We fear disappointing others or being labeled as selfish. But what if we reframe these moments as opportunities to model respect for ourselves and for those we care about? When we say no, we are not rejecting the person, we are simply asserting our limits. This act of self-respect invites others to do the same and creates a dynamic where both parties can thrive. It teaches others that kindness does not mean compromising who we are, but embracing it fully. It is important to recognize that strength and kindness are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are deeply intertwined. Strength is what allows us to be vulnerable, to express our needs, and to navigate the complexities of human relationships with integrity. Without strength, kindness can easily devolve into martyrdom, a form of self-sacrifice that leaves us feeling bitter and disconnected. When kindness is paired with strength, it becomes a powerful force that fosters connection, trust, and mutual respect. There is also a misconception that being strong means being unyielding or emotionally distant. This could not be further from the truth. Strength and kindness is about flexibility and resilience. It is about being open to the needs and perspectives of others while staying grounded in our own truth. This balance is not always easy to achieve, but it is essential for building healthy and fulfilling relationships. It requires us to let go of the need to be everything for everyone and instead focus on being true to ourselves and our values. And one of the greatest challenges in practicing kindness rooted in strength is overcoming the fear of judgment. Society often rewards those who are selfless to a fault, painting them as noble or virtuous. Conversely, those who set boundaries or prioritize their own well-being are often criticized or misunderstood. This dynamic can make it difficult to break free from the cycle of self-sacrifice, but it is crucial to remember that true kindness is not about seeking external validation. It is about aligning our actions with our values and treating ourselves with the same compassion we extend to others. Kindness that stems from strength also requires self-awareness. We must take the time to understand our own needs, boundaries, and triggers. This self-awareness allows us to approach situations with clarity and intention rather than reacting out of guilt or obligation. It helps us recognize when we are giving from a place of abundance versus when we are giving from a place of depletion. When we operate from a foundation of self-awareness, our kindness becomes more genuine and impactful because it is rooted in authenticity rather than fear. Another critical aspect of kindness rooted in strength is the ability to engage in difficult conversations. Often we avoid addressing issues because we fear conflict or hurting someone's feelings. But avoiding these conversations can lead to misunderstandings, resentment, and a breakdown in trust. True kindness involves the courage to speak the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. It is about finding ways to express our concerns with empathy and respect, creating an environment where honesty and growth can flourish. Practicing kindness in this way is not always easy. It requires us to confront our fears and challenge deeply ingrained beliefs about what it means to be a good person. It may mean disappointing others or facing criticism, but it also means living a life that is aligned with our values and integrity. The rewards of this approach are profound. When we embrace kindness rooted in strength, we experience deeper connections, greater self-respect, and a sense of empowerment that allows us to navigate the world with confidence and grace. Kindness is not a passive act. It is an active choice that requires effort, courage, and resilience. It is not about giving endlessly or putting others' needs above our own. It is about finding a balance that allows us to show up fully for ourselves and others. This type of kindness is not always easy to practice, but it is always worth it. When we lead with kindness rooted in strength, we create a ripple effect that inspires others to do the same. We model a way of being that values honesty, respect, and authenticity, paving the way for deeper and more meaningful relationships. Ultimately, kindness rooted in strength is about liberation. It frees us from the burden of trying to be everything to everyone and allows us to focus on what truly matters. It empowers us to live authentically, to love deeply, and to connect with others in ways that are both meaningful and sustainable. This is the essence of true kindness, not softness, but strength. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out, they're bridges to keep relationships safe. This perspective on boundaries shifts the narrative from one of exclusion and defensiveness to one of connection and protection. It reframes the act of setting limits not as a means of shutting others away, but as a way to preserve the integrity of our relationships while maintaining our own sense of self. Boundaries are not barriers, they are tools for fostering mutual respect and understanding. When we view them this way, we begin to see how essential they are for cultivating healthy and lasting connections. In many relationships, whether personal or professional, the absence of boundaries can lead to confusion, resentment, and even conflict. Without clear guidelines about what is acceptable or what we are comfortable with, it becomes easy for misunderstandings to arise. People may unintentionally overstep, thinking they are acting in good faith, while the person on the receiving end may feel disrespected or taken advantage of. The tension that follows can strain even the strongest bonds. Such boundaries, however, act as a framework that helps to avoid these situations. They establish a clear understanding of how we wish to be treated and what we can offer to others. In doing so, they create a space where trust and respect can flourish. It is a common misconception that boundaries are about control or exclusion. Many people fear that setting boundaries will make them seem cold, distant, or unkind. They worry that others might feel rejected or hurt by the limits they establish. But boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about inviting people in under conditions that are healthy and sustainable for both parties. When we set boundaries, we are not saying, I don't want you in my life. Instead, we are saying, I value this relationship enough to ensure it remains respectful and balanced. This is why boundaries are bridges. They connect us in ways that protect both the relationship and the individuals within it. The strength of boundaries lies in their ability to create clarity. When we articulate our needs and limits, we reduce the likelihood of misunderstandings and misaligned expectations. For example, if someone is repeatedly asking for your time in a way that feels overwhelming, setting a boundary allows you to communicate your capacity without resentment. Instead of avoiding the person or letting frustration build, you can express what works for you in a way that honors both your needs and the relationship. This kind of clarity strengthens connections because it removes ambiguity and fosters open communication. Boundaries also play a critical role in protecting our emotional well-being. Without them, we risk overextending ourselves to meet the demands or expectations of others, often at the expense of our own needs. This can lead to burnout, resentment, and a sense of being unappreciated or invisible. By setting boundaries, we prioritize our well-being while still showing up for the people and commitments that matter to us. It is not about selfishness, it is about sustainability. We cannot pour from an empty cup, and boundaries ensure that we have the energy and emotional capacity to nurture our relationships and ourselves. In addition to protecting our emotional health, boundaries also encourage personal growth. When we establish limits, we challenge ourselves to articulate what we need and to stand firm in those needs, even when it feels uncomfortable. This process requires self-awareness, courage, and vulnerability. It is not always easy to say, this is what I need, or this is what I cannot do, especially if we fear disappointing others. But in doing so, we practice self-respect and model the kind of behavior we wish to see in others. We show that it is possible to care deeply for someone while also honoring our own needs. For the people on the receiving end of our boundaries, the experience can be equally transformative. While it may initially feel unfamiliar or even challenging to respect someone else's limits, it ultimately fosters a sense of security and trust. Boundaries provide a roadmap for how to engage with someone in a way that feels respectful and meaningful. They eliminate the guesswork and help both parties feel more confident in the relationship. Over time, this builds a foundation of mutual respect that strengthens the connection and allows it to thrive. It is also worth noting that boundaries are not static, they are dynamic and evolving. As we grow and change, our needs and capacities may shift, and our boundaries may need to be adjusted accordingly. This adaptability is what makes boundaries such powerful tools for maintaining healthy relationships. They are not rigid rules set in stone, but flexible guidelines that can be revisited and revised as needed. This flexibility allows relationships to adapt and grow alongside the people within them. One of the most profound aspects of boundaries is that they empower us to take responsibility for our own well-being. While it is tempting to blame others when we feel overwhelmed or disrespected, the truth is that we have a role to play in communicating our limits. Setting boundaries is an act of self-accountability. It is a way of saying, I am responsible for protecting my energy and ensuring that my needs are met. This does not absolve others of their responsibility to respect those boundaries, but it does place the power in our hands to advocate for ourselves. The beauty of boundaries as bridges is that they create a space where authenticity can thrive. When we set boundaries, we create an environment where we can show up as our true selves without fear of being taken advantage of or overextending ourselves. So this authenticity invites others to do the same, leading to deeper and more meaningful connections. Relationships built on this foundation are not only healthier, but also more fulfilling because they are rooted in mutual respect and understanding. There will inevitably be moments when setting boundaries feels difficult or even painful. Perhaps someone reacts poorly to a boundary we have established, or perhaps we struggle to articulate our needs in a way that feels clear and kind. These moments are challenging, but they are also opportunities for growth. Each time we practice setting boundaries, we become more skilled at navigating these conversations and more confident in our ability to advocate for ourselves. Boundaries are not about creating distance, they are about creating safety. They ensure that our relationships remain places where we feel valued and respected, rather than places where we feel drained or diminished. By viewing boundaries as bridges, we can approach them with a sense of purpose and intention rather than fear or guilt. We can recognize them as acts of care, not only for ourselves, but also for the people we share our lives with. Ultimately, boundaries are an expression of love for ourselves and love for others. They allow us to engage with the world in a way that is both compassionate and sustainable. They remind us that we can be generous without being self-sacrificing, and that we can be kind without compromising our own needs. Boundaries are not about exclusion, they are about connection. They are the bridges that keep our relationships safe, strong, and enduring. Avoiding hard conversations doesn't protect relationships, it erodes them. It's a paradox many of us face in our lives, believing that silence, avoidance, or brushing things under the rug will maintain harmony in our relationships. We often think that sparing someone the discomfort of a difficult conversation is an act of kindness, that sidestepping the issue will somehow preserve the bond. Yet in reality, the opposite is true. The unspoken tension, the unresolved feelings, and the lack of clarity begin to chip away at the foundation of the relationship. Over time, this avoidance can create distance, resentment, and a breakdown in trust that is far more damaging than the discomfort of addressing the issue in the first place. Hard conversations are the cornerstone of authentic relationships. They are not easy, but they are necessary. When we avoid them, we sacrifice honesty for the illusion of peace. To convince ourselves that things will get better on their own. That time will heal the misunderstandings or frustrations that linger beneath the surface. But unresolved issues don't disappear, they grow. They fester in the quiet spaces of our interactions, shaping how we see the other person and how we see ourselves within the relationship. The longer we avoid addressing these issues, the more the emotional distance between us expands. What might start as a small misunderstanding or misalignment can evolve into a deep fracture that feels irreparable. Avoidance often stems from fear. We fear conflict, rejection, or the possibility of saying something that might hurt the other person. We fear that addressing the issue will make things worse, or that the relationship might not survive the honesty. These fears are valid, but they are also limiting. When we let fear dictate our actions, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to build deeper, more meaningful connections. The truth is, no relationship worth having is free from difficult moments. It is through these moments that we learn about each other, grow together, and strengthen the bond we share. Hard conversations are not about assigning blame or proving a point. They are about seeking understanding and finding a way forward. They require vulnerability, courage, and a willingness to listen as much as we speak. Thus, when we approach these conversations with an open heart and a genuine desire to resolve the issue, they can become opportunities for growth rather than sources of conflict. They allow us to address the underlying emotions and needs that often go unspoken in our daily interactions. By bringing these feelings into the open, we create a space where both parties can feel seen, heard, and valued. Avoidance, on the other hand, sends a different message. It tells the other person that their feelings or the relationship itself are not important enough to confront the discomfort. It creates a dynamic where the unsaid becomes a barrier to intimacy. Over time, this dynamic can lead to assumptions, misunderstandings, and a sense of disconnection. The very act of avoiding the hard conversation can be more damaging than the issue itself. It erodes trust, as the other person may begin to question whether you are willing to engage with them honestly and openly. In avoiding hard conversations, we also deny ourselves the chance to grow. Every difficult discussion is an opportunity to practice empathy, improve communication skills, and deepen our understanding of ourselves and others. Now, these conversations challenge us to confront our own assumptions, biases, and fears. They teach us how to navigate discomfort and how to express our needs in a way that is constructive rather than confrontational. When we avoid them, we miss out on these valuable lessons. We stay stuck in a cycle of avoidance, never fully addressing the root of the issue or learning how to handle similar situations in the future. Our relationships are built on communication, and communication is not always easy. It requires effort, patience, and a willingness to engage with the hard stuff. When we avoid difficult topics, we undermine this foundation. We create an environment where important issues are left unresolved and where the full depth of the relationship is never realized. Hard conversations are a way of saying, I care about this relationship enough to work through the challenges. They are an investment in the connection, a way of ensuring that it remains strong and resilient in the face of adversity. It is also important to recognize that avoiding hard conversations does not spare us from discomfort, it simply delays it. The feelings we are trying to avoid don't disappear, they linger, influencing our thoughts, actions, and interactions in subtle and not so subtle ways. Over time, the weight of unspoken issues can become unbearable, leading to an outburst or breakdown that is far more painful than addressing the issue early on would have been. By avoiding the conversation, we allow the problem to grow, making it harder to resolve when we finally do confront it. Moreover, hard conversations are not just about resolving conflicts, they are about building trust. When we are willing to engage in these discussions, we show the other person that we value the relationship enough to confront the difficult moments. We demonstrate a commitment to honesty and a willingness to work through challenges together. This trust is essential for any meaningful connection, and it can only be built through open and honest communication. Avoidance, on the other hand, undermines this trust, creating a sense of uncertainty and distance that weakens the bond. It is natural to feel anxious or uncomfortable about having a hard conversation. These feelings are a sign that we care about the relationship and about how the other person will receive what we have to say. But we must remember that discomfort is not inherently bad. It is a necessary part of growth and change. By leaning into the discomfort, we create the possibility for resolution and understanding. We give ourselves and the other person the chance to move forward rather than remaining stuck in a cycle of avoidance and unresolved tension. Hard conversations require us to be present and intentional. They demand that we approach the situation with empathy, recognizing that the other person's feelings and perspective are just as valid as our own. They challenge us to express ourselves clearly and constructively without resorting to blame or defensiveness. These are not easy skills to master, but they are essential for building strong and healthy relationships. Every time we engage in a hard conversation, we strengthen these skills and deepen our capacity for connection. Avoidance may offer a temporary sense of relief, but it comes at a cost. It leaves issues unresolved, erodes trust, and creates distance in our relationships. Hard conversations, on the other hand, require effort and courage, but they offer the possibility of growth, understanding, and deeper connection. They are an essential part of maintaining healthy relationships, and they remind us that true connection is not about avoiding conflict, but about navigating it together. When we embrace hard conversations as opportunities rather than obstacles, we transform our relationships and ourselves. We learn to communicate with clarity and compassion, to address issues directly and constructively, and to build connections that are strong enough to withstand the challenges of life. Avoiding these conversations may feel easier in the moment, but it ultimately undermines the very relationships we are trying to protect. By facing the discomfort head on, we create a foundation of trust and authenticity that allows our relationships to thrive. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you reinforce your worth. This truth speaks to the heart of personal growth, self-respect, and the pursuit of an authentic life. It challenges the natural human tendency to seek safety, predictability, and ease, reminding us that true strength and self-worth are forged in moments of discomfort and risk. Choosing courage is not about being fearless, it is about feeling the fear and stepping forward anyway. It is about honoring your values, your dreams, and your voice, even when the path ahead feels uncertain or intimidating. Courage is often misunderstood as a grand, dramatic act, a moment of heroism or defiance in the face of extraordinary circumstances. But in reality, courage shows up in the quiet, everyday moments of our lives. It is the decision to have a hard conversation instead of staying silent. It is the choice to pursue a dream even when others doubt you. It is the willingness to show up authentically even when you fear judgment or rejection. These acts of courage, though small on the surface, have a profound impact on how we see ourselves and how we engage with the world. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you send a message to yourself about your worth. You affirm that your feelings, your goals, and your boundaries matter enough to be acted upon. You prove to yourself that you are capable of facing challenges and navigating uncertainty. This self-affirmation is a powerful force, one that strengthens your sense of identity and builds the confidence to take on even greater challenges. It is through these choices that we begin to rewrite the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we are capable of. Comfort, on the other hand, can be a seductive trap. It offers the illusion of safety and stability, but often at the cost of growth and fulfillment. Staying in our comfort zone means avoiding the risks that come with change, but it also means missing out on the opportunities that come with it. Over time, the pursuit of comfort can lead to stagnation, a sense of dissatisfaction, and even a loss of self-respect. When we choose comfort over courage, we reinforce the idea that it is better to play small to avoid conflict or to prioritize others' expectations over our own desires. This can chip away at our self-worth, leaving us feeling stuck and unfulfilled. Choosing courage does not mean abandoning all caution or throwing ourselves into situations recklessly. It means being intentional about the risks we take, guided by our values and aspirations. Courage is about aligning our actions with what matters most to us, even when it feels uncomfortable or uncertain. It is about recognizing that discomfort is not a sign of failure or inadequacy, but a natural part of growth. When we embrace this discomfort, we open ourselves to the possibility of transformation. There is a profound connection between courage and self-worth. Each courageous choice we make reinforces our belief in our own value. It reminds us that we are worthy of being heard, of pursuing our dreams, and of standing up for what we believe in. This belief in our worth is not something that comes from external validation. It is cultivated from within through the choices we make and the actions we take. Every time we choose courage, we take a step toward becoming the person we want to be, and in doing so, we strengthen our sense of self. Courage is not a one-time act, it is a practice. It is a series of decisions made moment by moment to face fear, uncertainty, and discomfort head-on. This practice builds resilience, teaching us that we are capable of handling more than we often give ourselves credit for. It shows us that fear is not an insurmountable barrier, but a challenge to be navigated. With each act of courage, we expand our capacity for growth and deepen our belief in our own strength. It is important to acknowledge that choosing courage over comfort is not always easy. It requires vulnerability, a willingness to face rejection, failure, or criticism. It asks us to let go of the need for certainty and to embrace the unknown. These are not small asks, and they often come with a great deal of emotional labor, but the rewards of courage far outweigh the cost. When we choose courage, we create a life that is aligned with our values and aspirations. We build relationships that are authentic and meaningful. We discover a sense of purpose and fulfillment that cannot be found within the confines of comfort. Courage also has a ripple effect. When we choose courage, we inspire others to do the same. Our actions show those around us that it is possible to face fear and uncertainty with grace and determination. How we become a source of strength and encouragement, modeling the kind of behavior that fosters growth and resilience. This ripple effect extends beyond our immediate circle, influencing the culture and communities we are a part of. Courage, in this way, becomes a force for collective empowerment and transformation. One of the most significant barriers to choosing courage is the fear of failure. We worry about what others will think, about making mistakes, or about falling short of our own expectations. But failure, like fear, is not something to be avoided at all costs. It is an inevitable part of any worthwhile journey. Every failure teaches us something valuable about ourselves and the world around us. It is through failure that we learn, grow, and refine our approach. When we reframe failure as a stepping stone rather than a dead end, we remove one of the greatest obstacles to courage. Choosing courage over comfort is an act of self-respect. It is a way of honoring your own voice and your own path. It is about saying, I am worth the effort, the risk, and the discomfort. This self-respect is not something that can be given to us by others. It is something we cultivate within ourselves, one courageous choice at a time. The more we practice courage, the more deeply we internalize this sense of worth. creating a solid foundation from which we can continue to grow and thrive. Courage also requires self-compassion. It is not about being perfect or fearless. It is about showing up even when we feel uncertain or afraid. Self-compassion reminds us that it is okay to struggle, to make mistakes, or to feel vulnerable. It allows us to approach ourselves with kindness and understanding, even in the face of difficulty. This compassion creates the space for courage to flourish, giving us the strength to take risks and the resilience to recover when things don't go as planned. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you take a step toward living a life that is true to who you are. You break free from the limitations of fear and self-doubt, opening yourself to the possibilities of growth, connection, and fulfillment. These choices, though often difficult, are the building blocks of a life well lived. They are the moments that define us, that shape our character, and that reinforce our worth in ways that no external validation ever could. In the end, the choice between courage and comfort is a choice between growth and stagnation, between authenticity and complacency. It is a choice that we are faced with every day in moments both big and small. Each time we choose courage, we reaffirm our belief in our own potential and our own value. We take a stand for the life we want to create, for the person we want to become, and for the world we want to be a part of. Courage is not just an act, it is a way of being, a commitment to ourselves and to the possibilities that lie beyond the boundaries of comfort. You can be kind and still say no. You can be compassionate and still choose yourself. These truths often feel counterintuitive in a world where kindness is too often conflated with self-sacrifice and compassion is seen as synonymous with endless availability. We are taught from an early age that to be a good person means to accommodate others, to put their needs before our own, and to avoid causing disappointment or conflict. But this interpretation of kindness and compassion is incomplete. True kindness is not about erasing ourselves to meet others' expectations, and real compassion does not require us to neglect our own needs. It is possible, necessary, even to extend kindness and compassion to others while maintaining boundaries that honor our well-being. Saying no is one of the simplest yet most difficult acts of self-preservation. It is a word that can carry immense weight, not just for the person hearing it, but for the one saying it. For many of us, the thought of saying no is uncomfortable, even anxiety-inducing. We worry that it will be taken as rejection, that it will hurt someone's feelings, or that it will damage the relationship. And so we say yes when we mean no. We agree to things we don't have the time, energy, or desire to do. We prioritize others' needs at the expense of our own, believing that this is what it means to be kind. But true kindness is not about pleasing everyone at all costs. It is about being honest, respectful, and considerate not only to others, but to ourselves. When we say yes out of obligation or fear, rather than genuine willingness, we are not being kind. We are being avoidant. We are avoiding the discomfort of saying no, of setting a boundary, of potentially disappointing someone. In doing so, we are also avoiding an essential truth that our needs and limits matter just as much as those of the people around us. Kindness must include ourselves, or it is not kindness at all. Compassion, too, is often misunderstood. It is seen as an unending well of patience, understanding, and support. And while compassion is indeed about being present for others, it is also about balance. Compassion without boundaries leads to burnout, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. When we prioritize others' needs over our own time and time again, we risk depleting the very reserves of compassion that allow us to be there for others in the first place. Choosing yourself is not an act of selfishness, it is an act of self-care. It is recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, that your ability to show up for others depends on your ability to show up for yourself. Saying no and choosing yourself are acts of courage. They require you to confront the discomfort of disappointing someone, of facing potential judgment, or of challenging societal expectations. They require you to trust that your worth is not determined by how much you give or how much you accommodate. They require you to believe that your needs, feelings, and boundaries are valid, even if others don't fully understand or agree with them. This is not easy work, but it is essential for building a life that is authentic, balanced, and sustainable. When we say no with kindness, we honor both ourselves and the other person. We communicate our boundaries clearly and respectfully, creating a space for mutual understanding. For example, if a friend asks for help at a time when you are overwhelmed, saying no doesn't mean you don't care about them. And it means you care enough to be honest about your capacity. It means you trust the strength of your relationship to withstand the momentary discomfort of a no. This honesty fosters trust and respect, both for yourself and for the other person. Choosing yourself is not about ignoring others' needs or being indifferent to their feelings. It is about recognizing that your own needs and feelings are equally important. Compassion for others and compassion for yourself are not mutually exclusive. They are deeply interconnected. And when you treat yourself with compassion, you model for others what it looks like to value and care for oneself. You show them that it is possible to be kind without being self-sacrificing, to be supportive without overextending yourself. This is a powerful and necessary lesson, especially in a world that so often equates worth with selflessness. The fear of saying no or choosing ourselves often comes from a fear of rejection. We worry that if we set boundaries, people will think less of us, will stop caring about us, or will walk away altogether. But the truth is, healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding, not on compliance or people-pleasing. When you say no or choose yourself, you give others the opportunity to respect your boundaries and to value you for who you are, not for what you can do for them. If a relationship cannot withstand a boundary, it may not have been as strong or healthy as you believed. There is also immense power in reframing the act of saying no. Instead of seeing it as a rejection or a failure, we can see it as an affirmation of our priorities, values, and well-being. Every no is a yes to something else, a yes to rest, to focus, to self-care, to the things that matter most to us. This perspective shift can help us approach boundaries not as barriers, but as acts of self-respect and intentionality. It allows us to see that kindness and compassion are not diminished by a no, they are deepened by it. The practice of saying no and choosing yourself is not just about individual moments. It is about creating a life that reflects your values and needs. It is about cultivating relationships where boundaries are not only respected but welcomed. It is about building a sense of self-worth that is rooted in authenticity rather than in how much you can give or how much you can endure. This practice takes time, patience, and a willingness to unlearn the messages that tell us our worth is tied to our ability to please others. But with each act of courage, it becomes easier. With each choice to honor your needs, you reinforce the belief that you are enough, just as you are. Kindness and compassion are not diminished when we choose ourselves, they are amplified. When we take care of ourselves, we are better able to care for others. When we set boundaries, we create space for relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and understanding. When we say no, we make room for the things that truly matter to us. These choices are not acts of selfishness, they are acts of love. They remind us that we can be kind and still say no, that we can be compassionate and still choose ourselves, and that in doing so, we create a life that is both generous and sustainable. In the end, choosing yourself while being kind and compassionate is not about building walls, it's about setting a foundation of mutual respect, trust, and authenticity. It's a reminder that you can honor others without dishonoring yourself, and that true kindness begins with understanding your own worth. When you say no with care, when you prioritize your well-being with intention, you lead a life that is both generous and deeply rooted in self-respect. This balance isn't just a gift to yourself, it's a gift to everyone around you, because when you show up whole, you show up stronger, more present, and more genuinely connected.